So those of you, I'll make this announcement again. Any of you are taking linguistics courses, please consider except perhaps 555. Linguistics courses are different from lit and comp rec courses, not in a bad way, but in a way that takes you from the courses that will suit you best in your master's or PhD program. Please trust me on this. We're offering more seats in 599. Take that course if you haven't already. It's a required course for the master's program. Take either 599.01B or 01W. Don't take the 599.02 courses. Those are the linguistics courses. We're also offering 677 issues in literacy and 680 reading theory for college English teachers. The online versions aren't listed yet, but should be in the next couple of days. Pass it on to others you know. So those two will be offered in the same way that this course is offered in the dual modality format. So I know we've gotten tight on courses. I fought to get more courses listed, and we have some wonderful faculty. Dr. Ashanka Kumari and Dr. Jess Pachak, who stepped up and said, I'll do it. So now we're set and respectable once again. So any questions about that and courses that you want to register for so far?
The other online courses, the one with Dr. Reed and I think her name's Andrews.
Tiffany, that one's full.
I know, I'm already in that one. But are they just online?
Just online.
Okay. So they're not going to be like this?
So let's see what's going on for today. And then, all right, so the Revolution of Evelyn Serrano is coming up for next week. This will be my first time reading it, so it's new to me. Face-to-face students go through previous posts, especially online non-streaming students' posts, and PowerPoints to identify recurring themes and topics, similarities and differences that have come up, especially concerning forms of resistance others have mentioned. Do include at least a little discussion regarding evolution of Evelyn Serrano. Online non-streaming students, you don't have to limit yourself to posts and PowerPoints from non-streaming online students. Pick any. Post to week 10 discussion board due Tuesday by noon. Your post should show evidence that you've taken some time to look through a variety of posts and have given them quite a bit of thought. So you don't have to go searching for articles. You just need to, what I want you to do is kind of review where we've been and where we are. I mean, you can look at and see if there's an evolution of thought as we've gone through the semester, and sometimes distance will help you do that, distance being away from those posts for a while. So that will be the assignment for next week. And I am going to Missouri this weekend, but I'm not next weekend. So next week will be a better week, and I'll have more time to do things that my job requires. Questions about any of that? All right. So questions about your edited collection coming up. You've read the introduction that I provided on Mother's, the edited collection on the Mother's book. And that helps. Let me know if you do have questions. I haven't seen you for a while, Jill.
I know. I've been in the land.
You've been what?
I've been in the land of foot surgery recovery for about a month.
Oh, how is that?
It's been awful. I don't recommend that for anybody.
You couldn't walk probably at all.
No, I couldn't walk for the first 3 weeks. No weight at all. And this is my 4th week, so I've gone through a knee scooter, crutches, a walker, and I'm on a cane now. So,
okay. Goodness sakes.
But since I have to come in my daughter's house for internet, so I couldn't even drive. So This is my first time I've been able to come back.
Okay.
So I think I might have turned in some stuff. I don't know about your class, but I know Dr. Hayes' class that I was on painkillers. So
I can't wait.
I just loved your
Interesting
posts in Dr. Hayes' class.
Oh, this will be fun. All right. And so we only have 3 books.
I did have a question though on the editing, just real quick, and just make sure. Are we supposed to have about 10 articles in the collection, or how many?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I thought that's what I've read, but I just want to make sure.
And then I, again, put it in a Word document instead of a, thank you. Brain's not working.
It's okay.
And it's a long one. Okay, they're alphabetical, kind of. Alex, yours is out of order. You popped up first. What'd you think of it? A little happier than.
Yeah. I did, yes, and I really enjoyed I liked it. I really enjoyed the part where Delphi learns what her name means. I'm like, I can see my kid doing that. Being all mad.
It's great to listen to. It's real fun to listen to. And I've read it, I don't know how many times, and listened to it, I don't know how many times, but I think it's a really valuable contribution to what we're talking about in terms of resistance and how the different forms that resistance takes. Although everything is starting to blur in my mind. I don't know about y'all, but Rock and River and this one kind of, even though they're so very different, they're kind of running into each other because some of the topics are the same. Mm-hmm. So there's that part, but it's also an opportunity for us to talk about, if we wish, and this has come up, I can't remember if you wrote about mothers. Somebody wrote about found an article regarding mothers. And you did, I think. No? Mm-hmm. You did, okay. I knew a couple of people did. One of the, since you have that introduction to mothers and children's literature, it kind of helps maybe offer some insights into mothering and motherhood and what it means for mothering, especially if you read anything about other mothers and that's not talking about Coraline, that's talking about extended family mothering and that kind of thing, and especially in families, in large communities with people of color who have to share those responsibilities and have had to share them in the past. So that's, we could talk about those mothers probably at quite a bit of length, because we've had a variety of mothers doing a variety of different things and behaving in a variety of different ways. Whether we might approve of them or not, it's something to, you okay?
Yeah, my head hurts.
Oh.
Yeah.
I've got Tylenol, do you?
No, I've got some in my bag. I took some. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see when pain happens.
Yeah, just like it's a sinus headache.
Okay. Well, if you need to leave,
Thank you.
don't wince in
Okay.
pain here. Wince at home.
Okay.
I'm kidding. I mean, do whatever you need
Yeah,
to
I
do.
will. Thank you.
But so let's talk about mothers for just a little bit and in what we've seen. And this can pop up again on when you bring up some items that you've seen posted from different posts throughout the semester, and I'm from the PowerPoints that I've provided. What kinds of ranges? Well, let's think about who we've read and what we've read.
I kind of thought about Planet of Junior Brown.
Oh yeah.
Very much like how you have this mom who's kind of complete opposite of, I'm not sure how you say, is it like Celine? Is that how you say her name? And
Cecile.
Cecile. Mhm.
Who's just, they're just polar opposites in just the way they parent and the way that they mother. And Junior Brown's mom was very much like on top of things and on him and making sure that he fit, almost to the point where it made him feel like he could not fit in. And then it's just the very opposite here, where you have a mother that's like not even feeding him breakfast, is just like very unmotherly and kind of goes against this mother stereotype that we see a lot of times in literature. So that's what I thought of first.
Well, and Junior Brown, she's neurotic,
Yeah.
and she is, well, neurotic probably just about sums it all up. And it's not, they don't have a healthy relationship, the mother and the son. And, usually it's mother, son, father, daughter, that we see those close relationships. I'm closest to my dad.
Mama's boy, and then you've got daddy's girl.
Uh-huh. And that's pretty standard. And girls can make their fathers do anything. I'm generalizing, of course. Hi, Greg.
Hello.
Mothers can, or daughters can wrap their dads around their little fingers, and sons can wrap their mothers around their little fingers. But the relationships aren't, they can be challenged. There can be some serious challenges with them. Hi, Jennifer. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi.
All right, do we have you all straightened out for everything you need for next semester for spring?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Good. I've been answering email, like, I don't know, probably 100 emails in the last 2 days.
I'm not surprised.
It's that kind of semester.
Yay, registration.
Yeah. And new students coming in, and anyway, so here I am. Which mother do you think, I mean, both mothers, Junior Brown and One Crazy Summer, Janella and Cecile, have issues very clearly. But what do you think? Are there ups to some and ups? What are the pros and cons regarding the forms of mothering they have assumed?
Well, I mean, I guess a pro to Junior Brown's mom is she's doing it because she loves him and cares about him.
She just has what people think about her.
Yeah.
It's just consumed with image.
Mm-hmm.
No, and the pro to Cecile is that it instills independence in the children.
It does that.
It does that.
Or at least in Delphine. Yeah. Well, I mean, she's had to take on the role of mother. You don't have
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of mothers in this novel. There's Big Mama,
Right.
because she's definitely the mother figure.
She's the one that stepped in.
She's the one who stepped in, took over, made sure that she provided a home for the girls.
And then on the trip, Delphine takes that.
And then on the trip, Delphine takes that role.
And
And-
Carvana had that role too.
Yes. So we're seeing some very clear patterns evolving here, I think. I don't know what's causing these patterns yet. This is something I'd have to sit down, think about, maybe even write about to figure it out. But what do you think of Cecile's mother?
I mean, Delphine's Cecile.
Yes.
I
She was awful.
I found it interesting that they turned the stereotypical absent father into the absent mother. Just because it's so, especially in Black families, usually it's the absent father stereotypically. And I was just like, I thought that was very kind of an interesting way to kind of turn things on their head.
And what do you make of that?
I don't think that Delphine would have been the character that she is if her father was gone and her mother was home. And had she not had to kind of step in.
Yeah, it'd be a whole different setup.
Well, I think Cecile left then because she knew she wasn't able to provide that for her.
Well, right.
And then if
It's loaded,
yeah.
completely loaded.
I was, in a way, I was glad at the end when Cecile was like, here's all of the terrible things I've been through, because like throughout the whole book, I would say, no, it's not this simple. She's been hurt. She's been bad.
Oh, yeah, there's, there's gotta be a reason. Well, one would hope that there are reasons for people abandoning their children.
Yeah. One would hope. So, all right, then look at the Rock and the River and the mothering that occurs there. And again, you know, we do have, in this case, we have two present parents. We probably have a very traditional image of a mother. In fact, I could see some of the things. My brother grew up in the 60s, and he was constantly kicked out of school for either wearing his jeans too tight, for bleaching his hair, for wearing it too long. The school was calling mom and dad all the time, come and get your son. He was rebellious. He was a follower of the Beatles. He played drums in a band.
Rock music.
And he went on, yeah, rock and roll. And he was so rebellious. And he and my dad got in a fist fight. It's the only time I've ever seen my dad get physical, ever, with anybody. And it's because we came home from a trip to Missouri early. We left my brother home, and he'd had a massive party. And it was not pretty. Beer bottles, alcohol all over the house, and he was 16 or 17.
Oh, boy.
Ring in the bathtub, that's what really pissed mom off.
Well, yeah, you know how hard it is to scrub a tub.
And people had slept in all the beds. It was a wild, typical teenage party, you know, for teenagers who have those wild parties. And oh, wow. And my brother, after that fist fight, ran away. He ran to, not very far, it was about a mile away, to his best friend's home. And the best friend's mother called my mom and said, your son's here. He can stay here if you want. And they finally got him back by bribing him with a car to finish high school. And he finished high school. He was dyslexic. They didn't know what that was at the time. So he was, you know, everything was an issue. And he had a smart, sarcastic sister, younger by 8 years.
I'm sure that was great.
Oh, yeah. I made better grades than you did, again. You know? So I see some of that similar tension in what we saw in Rock and River with
Sam and
Stick and the dad, as I saw with my family. I saw those. I saw that anger. I saw that tension. And there it is. It's the same period of time when everybody was just breathing rebellion, teenagers especially. And so I recognized that the consequences, of course, are much, much different for a young Black teenager, male, in that period. It's life and death then, as we saw. And where it isn't necessarily in my brother's circumstance. But he was a rebel all of his life until he became just like my father. And that's what Sam's going to do. He's going to have a bit of his father. But we have, you know, that tension between father and father, or father and son, which is not uncommon. We have that. We see how the relationship is between the mother and the son, and mother cannot stand it. She's aching over this, but she's doing what her husband expects her to do, which is to
back up what he sense.
back him up, support him.
Almost June Cleaver, like.
Yes. In fact, I pictured her with the big full skirt and curls.
Especially when she was making dinner for Dr. King.
It seems like she was always making.
Well, I mean,
Uh-huh.
that's where
Doing
you were
dishes.
supposed to be, is in the kitchen. Just,
That's, yeah. And creating this very important image. So what else have we had? Feed, there is no mother. And the parents are just, that's a
Well,
whole,
she's faceless.
That's a whole different
It's
story.
like the parents are there, but they're not really.
Is the mother's been dead for a long time.
No,
No, she's
there.
chasing the
Her
younger
skin
brother
is-
around the house.
Oh, I meant,
there.
no, I meant
You said Lee.
Violet's mother is
Oh,
gone.
yes.
Okay, hers.
Yeah, and those other parents don't
She's the
count.
absent mother in that one too.
Yeah, everybody, all authority is absent in every way in that novel, which is why it's so chaotic.
I think it maybe in this novel, I haven't thought of all of it, but this might be the first one when the mother, Cecile, becomes not absent, she gets worse.
yeah.
She just
She
doesn't
was.
know. Well, I mean,
She's
she
just
just,
kind of absent even when she was there.
right, and I think that kind of falls into the not knowing how to mother, which, is a valid reason for her having left in the first place.
Mhm.
But she just doesn't know how to she could barely take care she never learned how to really take care of herself, given her life circumstances.
Mhm.
And her standard remark was, I didn't ask you to be here.
Right.
You know, she was really pretty tough.
You gave birth to him, but in that way you did ask for him to be
That's
there.
right.
Well,
But sometimes you can't help that.
I noticed the comment that she made about, I should have gone to Mexico to take care of you guys
Yes,
when I had a
yes,
chance.
Yeah. So
I
she was brutal.
liked how our author takes that and looks at it from a child's point of view, because we reading it, we know exactly what she means. And then Delphine trying to explain it because she doesn't really know either, and saying, well, that's where they sell you to. Well, family.
Yes.
I was like, I could so see my kids saying that kind of crap.
Yeah. Not knowing what.
Not knowing what it
The
is,
actual-
trying to come up with some
Something logical.
rationalization,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Dear Martin. Okay, I got to think back. Dear Martin.
His mom was still in the
Living in
neighborhood
the
where he
front.
grew up,
Yeah.
and she didn't really want him to hang around.
She was
Right.
very no nonsense.
Yeah.
I can't remember hardly anything about it.
She wanted what was best for him, and so she pushed him out. And she's like, "What are you doing here?
She
Why
kept
aren't you
kicking
in
him out of
school?"
the nest.
It wasn't that she didn't love him or she didn't want him. She just didn't want him to get mired in what
She
was
knew that,
here.
right?
Mhm.
She knew that he would have better opportunities if he stuck to the better side of town
Right.
And
instead of coming home. all the
That's
time.
right. That's right.
She didn't want him with SJ.
That's true.
That's right. Now I remember. Now it's coming
Reverse
back.
racism. That
It's
was like-
slowly
that was
seeping
years
back.
ago.
We have
I know.
so many characters.
Yeah, we've had a lot of characters in between and a lot of plots. Similar and different.
Whereas SJ's parents were all for it.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah, you would really expect the racism to be reversed.
Or equal, or both against
Or,
it.
yeah.
Well, what about Manny's mom? Like she was the doctor in the household, and she was the one who was super successful. Like his dad was too, but he wasn't doctor. He was just
He was a higher businessman or something.
right. But even still, we saw him fall because of his protests.
Yeah, that dinner, remember the dinner, the parents were, when they were poised and when, I can't think, when Justice was at dinner and they were giving him,
The watch.
The watch, yes.
What else have we read? Okay,
Carvana, we already talked about Carvana a little
a
bit.
little bit, yeah.
Honestly.
And I guess one of the things when we think about this mothering
that goes on. The question is, there's some questions to ask, such as, what makes the mothers do what they do? What is the impact on the children? Where do you see intersections, parallels, and diversions? I guess those are the questions to ask, and then make a conclusion from that. And that, my friends, is a dissertation. Or a thesis.
You know, I'm the one who had, well, I'm one of the people who had an article on others. Not tell a little bit right now about one thing that was said in there. Then moving up a level as to why do those characters do that. I mean, if you say, well, it's because of the author. In this article, Nora Ephron said every time that things get so that society or the trend is pushing women to, you ought to be taking care of your kids. Maybe she didn't say in a career, but I'll put it that way. She said that's a political message. Get back where you belong.
Mm-hmm.
Back where you belong.
Mm-hmm.
Barefoot in the kitchen.
Yep. All right, let's see what some of y'all had to say. And it's available to you as usual online. Alex, an interview with Harold Taylor. Talk to us about this.
This was just a straight up transcript of an interview of a man who had been involved in organizing Black Panther Party, subunits, maybe. He would go into an area and the party had already been there, and he was like, okay, here's how we need to organize, here's how we need to set up the breakfast program, here's how we need to set up this kind of outreach thing.
He had the vision.
Mm-hmm. And he was talking about all of these horrible things that had happened. People tried to grab him and throw him in a van, and he had to fight them off. He spent a lot of time talking about avoiding the FBI and avoiding COINTELPRO. I didn't look up what that means. I assume it means counterintelligence program.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a guess.
It's what came before the CIA, right?
I thought the CIA was around during biblical times.
That's a pretty astute assumption.
But that's what they want you to believe anyway.
Basically, he was just, this man, Harold Taylor, was talking about how to survive when the system is literally trying to murder you.
Mm-hmm.
And I found a lot of connections to Cecile. I don't think she's on the run, but she has made it harder to find out where she is, make the interpersonal connections. She's kind of off the grid.
Yes, and there wasn't really a grid in the 60s, but there is, and she is pushing everybody away possible. She's absorbed in her writing, which is very, it's a way of distancing oneself from others, hold up in writing, and that's what, I don't think she held it against her. I mean, that's part of her personality, the personality that's formed for her. Mm-hmm. But as you said, it draws attention to her, that writing does. Evasive actions stem the larger socio-political landscape at the time, or are more personally related to her own painful experiences. I don't know, what do you think?
I think yes to both.
Both and.
Because she keeps going back to, she keeps saying yes to those Black Panther suggestions. Hey, will you help out? Even though she says no, she ends up falling for it. Yeah.
And of course it gets her in trouble.
Yeah. But then she's refusing to let go with her children. So that's because of her own hurt.
Refusing to let go
Of her own pain. She doesn't tell all of her children, I let go of you, I let you go because of this. Or she won't say, oh, I love you, I'm sorry I let you go. She's not forgiving herself for that.
Yes, both and.
This is from Allie, the woman question, gender dynamics within the Black Panther Party. And I think we had somebody address this last week, but it is fair to assume that we are all aware of Black Panther misrepresentation. By now, you better be. However, for myself, at least, this misrepresentation or lack of any representation of women in the party came as some surprise. The article addresses the misinformation of the party, specifically of the female members, and how progressive the party actually was in terms of gender. Women were depicted as warriors, sometimes with a gun in one hand and a child in the other, while men were sometimes shown serving the people through the party's various community survival programs. By using their agency to create these nonconformist and atypical images of themselves, the Panthers were negating Euro-centered ideas. So it is true that in the we have to think about the period that this is coming out of in the 60s, you know, looking at the 60s, and how women, the expectations associated with women and mothers and all of that. So, and just because they're Black Panthers doesn't mean that they find it easy to cast off everything that they're accustomed to. So I'd say, Allie, that it's both on there once again, that, yeah, they're depicted as warriors, and especially in One Crazy Summer, we see some very cool things going on with Cecile, and in Rockin' the River, we see some very cool things going on with the females in that. But I'd say that's a new depiction, and maybe more closely reflects what it was like. I don't know, Allie, if you watched that documentary, but of course it depends, and I can't remember who produced and directed it. Was it a Spike? No, it wasn't Spike Lee. No. Because, you know, if somebody white produced, directed it, it's going to still have that white Euro perspective to it that is almost impossible to get rid of. So to give you an example, I was reading of, and it might not sound related at the very beginning, but I was reading about the Scots and their plans and their Tarletons and how they came to form a legacy. And this was from the BBC, and it was written by a Brit and not a Scottish person. And it was very clearly, once a Scot got on there and said, "You don't know what you're talking about," that these were very intentional designs that they made. And because this Brit was saying, no, they just put any old thing together. And this is for the BBC. Yeah, and I right there, it showed me, okay, if the BBC is screwing up like this, then it's going to be pretty easy for everybody else, for white people producing, directing films, get it. And even people of color, if they have been assimilated or have been just interpolated into that system of belief.
Right.
Emily, but I was a little boy, and what could I do about it?
Yeah. So mine is on children as narrators, and I was more like focused on just the unreliable narrator.
Mm-hmm.
And so I noticed a lot of times, like especially in moments in the book when the Black Panther Party would come visit Cecile, you were only really getting Delphine's perspective, how she interpreted the conversation and interaction. And so I was just curious as to what others had said about children as narrators. And I found this article where he addresses all the other scholarship that's out there that says that children as narrators more or less a bad thing because they're not picking up on things that adults would pick up on. And he's arguing that actually children as narrators is a really great thing because they are going to pick up things that we would miss, like the little small things. And so having a child as a narrator gives us insight to things that we normally wouldn't pick up on. And so my question was kind of, do we see this with Delphine? And is using Delphine as the narrator the most effective way to tell this story? Why not use one of her sisters? Or how would the story have changed had we gotten the perspective of Cecile? So that's
How interesting. Because one of the things about the young narrator, the child narrator, is that point of view, that perspective. So, and it's usually ironic, because so in Watson's Go to Birmingham, 1963, how many of you have read that? All right, he's got a lazy eye, and he's young, and he exaggerates, but it's told through his point of view, and his lazy eye is ironic because there's nothing lazy about the way he sees the world. He sees it quite clearly and makes these very profound statements about humanity's, the human condition. When that happens, when an author uses a narrator, ironically, it does ask the reader to do a lot, but it doesn't matter how old the reader is because adult readers don't get irony either. In fact, it was years ago and I was struck by it. It was before they started recording their broadcasts. It was a thing on NPR about somebody about talking about who's the author? Mark Twain. Mark Twain and his use of irony with Jim and Jim and Huck, especially on their trip on the river. And the person who was making these observations said, adults don't get irony. They're not clever enough for it. So many of them. And then all we have to do is look back at Jonathan Swift and at A Modest Proposal and find out that the British were saying, what a great idea. Let them eat their children. Solves all problems. And he did not, that's not what he was being ironic and satirical and
Arguments
making
now even.
I know, and making a comment on this particular time and culture. So, but people were taking it seriously, and I've seen that happen in other instances as well. So, yeah, adults, not so much.
We take things way too seriously as grown-ups.
And here's the difference in part. If you grow up in getting a kind of a humanities-based education, you're going to get that kind of stuff. You're going to find out about irony. You're going to be able to start learning to read between the lines. If you're trained in facts only, then everything looks like a fact or a lie, and there's no in between. There's no room for irony in those instances, and that's one of the incredible losses, especially in our contemporary climate, that I've seen. And no understanding of no recognition of the complete irony of what's happening now.
It's part of the problem of pushing STEM so much, science, technology, engineering, and math. You get all these really logical folks, and you push the humanities away.
And it also comes with testing.
Yeah, they're also starting to do more STEAM, though. They're trying to incorporate art more into it. But yeah,
It comes from testing too.
I can see it even in my kids and my nephews. You know, you've got some kids that are just more black and white. And so, like, I have a nephew that you can make a joke or a side comment, and he will take you seriously, like without any doubt. He believes exactly what you said. You know. And then, like, my daughter is so the opposite, but she's the more creative, artistic type. So she can catch the sarcasm and things of that sort. So
And when I say that testing also contributes to it, they're trained to get the right answer. They're trained in true, false, in multiple choice, in one answer.
Well, and with the multiple choice, and I'm sure I've done this before, like they ask them to make an inference, but they don't let them defend the inference that they make.
Mhm.
They're expected to make the inference that the white middle class test writer would make as a child. And so if they can't justify why they think what they think, they're just told they're wrong and that they can't read, and they internalize that.
Mhm.
And so they don't even want to try to interpret it because they've been slammed so often that their interpretation is wrong.
Mhm.
It's not it.
You don't want to take any chances.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the necessity. That's one of the major necessities of an education that participates in the humanities to a good extent. So, what do you think about Delphine's? And it's something that you'll also observe. I mean, all kids are brilliant who narrate texts.
Well, it comes, it's just that line, from the mouth of babes, we've, it's sometimes what we get out of the youth is just kind of like, I would never have thought to even look at a situation that way.
Plus, they don't have the filters.
Right, exactly.
I remember some things I said as a child that embarrassed my mother beyond embarrassment.
That's a child's job, though.
That's a child's job because I didn't know any better. I didn't know not to ask that question in
How come
public.
that guy only has one arm?
Yeah. kind of along.
Really loud in the grocery store.
Yeah.
That's what.
Of course, it's a narrator. It's an author trying to sound like an intelligent kid, because you can't have stupid kids. They're not going to get their point made. Think about it. A really stupid narrator.
That would be a challenge.
Yeah. And it's a horrible thing to do.
It would give hope to all the lower IQ kids.
If they could muddle through it.
Isn't that
Yeah.
Freak the Mighty?
I can't remember. Is he? It's been
I'd have to
At
ask my
least
son. He just read that
15 years since I've read that.
My son just read Reading the Mighty.
A little bit on the lower end.
Phil Breck, is that who wrote it? Yeah, something like that. Give us a summary.
A summary of Freak the Mighty. So you have the narrator. It's been a while since I've read it as well. But he says he was never smart until he met Freak, who is a disabled kid. They have some adventures together that are mostly made up or put forward by Freak, his friend, and Freak ends up dying and leaving him his the stories that they had worked on together.
Uh-huh. So the narrator actually is, it turns out, he will be a smart young man, right? You think? Or he won't be?
It's hard to say because the language throughout is so stilted to the lower level diction.
I'd have to look at that again. Although I think I'd be punishing myself perhaps if I read it again.
Even though we really didn't get to know them very well in the book, Big Ma and Papa, I think the little we knew about them, I felt like we heard that in Delphine. She was very practical.
Yes.
She would just cut right to the core of things.
I like
And I could
that.
just hear those parents back in the South doing that. I felt like that was really her upbringing. She was really,
I like that she was proud of it. Like when she would compare her was it frank or plain faced, her dad's plain, and her plain manner. I like that she accepted that and actually appreciated that about herself, because so many kids are trying to be seen, and she didn't. She was very matter of fact.
I noticed it the most when Delphine was being critical. I could just hear that big mom saying.
She gets it from someplace.
Yes. And when she was talking about Cecile, and well, it's about time, or I can't think of exactly, but I could just hear her mimicking, and they hadn't said those probably, but that was just her practical, see it like it is kind of personality.
And the text suggests that the parents are disciplinarians, or Big Ma and their dad.
Well, yeah,
They're
gonna get their
disciplinarians.
butts whooped if they don't do it.
But it's also suggested that they don't need to do it very much. That these kids have caught on pretty quickly.
And she would like to discipline Cecile. Delphine would.
Yes, she would. Yes. Greg,
Yes, ma'am.
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Oh, yes.
Talk to us about this.
Yes, ma'am. So obviously I didn't touch on the Black Panthers or anything, but I found it as I was reading through there, the character development of Delphine as she started learning about herself and her culture, her race, and some of the struggles and whatnot. And I couldn't help but think about, how she was transplanted from the, maybe not affluent, but, a better situation on into Oakland and had to, kind of see things from a different perspective. And then she grew from that. And I couldn't help but think as I was reading through the story of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air getting transplanted, just, convexly of that from a rough neighborhood to a affluent neighborhood, and how that how he grew from that, and how Delphine grew. She grew and she learned, and also I think that those around her did too, and learned from that experience. Just as they're in the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
We won't talk about Freud.
No, thank you so kindly. So, and I will add, Dr. Stewart, that I like this view better from this side, to actually see y'all's faces instead of the backs of your head.
Oh, can you see them now?
Yes, ma'am.
You can see them?
We
I think they can
This
select.
camera is on versus that camera.
Well,
Yeah.
why in the world hasn't that been done in the past? I don't have any idea.
So they can see you if you're up here in this area.
Oh, who cares about me? Right?
Oh,
Yeah, I want this camera going.
So when
Although I have a really adorable outfit on tonight.
Yeah, very sassy.
Well, okay, let's try to make sure that it stays that way for the rest of what's left of the semester. I don't think I ever watched The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Oh, really?
What years was it on?
It was
Early
early 90s, yeah. Will Smith.
Oh my gosh, I love that show.
it was pretty. It was
Yes, that's exactly. I've got the song in my head right now.
I know, right?
Are they thinking about reviving it?
No.
No.
They're reviving Saved by the Bell
Are they really?
without the main character, without Zach.
What?
Yeah.
How are they gonna do that?
They're gonna bring Zach's kid.
I didn't watch that either.
That was like my before school show back in the day, man.
Yeah, I think.
I have all 5 seasons on DVD.
No.
Just saying.
It's like it's the old school Friends. It was like Friends before Friends came out.
Yeah.
That was a good show.
How was racism brought up in Fresh Prince? Did they address it? They had to have.
Oh yeah,
I'm sure.
But
Yeah, there was an episode when they get pulled over, and they have to talk about that. I remember that.
Because
I wonder if I can find this clip on YouTube.
he comes from, Will Smith's character comes from a much lower economic,
In Philly.
Philadelphia family. And ends up in, what is it, California?
Bel Air.
Bel Air.
Bel Air, yeah. With his uncle is very affluent, very well off, and his cousin,
Carlton.
is very much a black white guy.
Okay.
He's like Manny.
Okay.
And so you see these two characters kind of grow together because they're about the same age. And so one kind of roughs up the other, and the other one kind of polishes up the other. But they address it. Like even I think the younger sister
Ashley.
has the younger
Hillary
one.
is the elder.
Oh yeah, Ashley.
So Ashley's the
I
younger.
think they have some issue because there's a younger daughter too.
Doesn't
That's
she
still-
one of them brings in a white boyfriend and they have that discussion with her.
Well, I'm glad I'm not the only fan. Boy, you guys got it down better.
It might have just not been the right time of my life for it. That's what.
Smith, well, yeah.
Don't do that. Jamisa. Where does motherhood, here we go. Where does motherhood fit into the life of Cecile according to the Black Panther Party reframing of Black womanhood? And we addressed that a little bit already. Does anybody have anything to add to that?
I mean, in regards to Cecile, there wasn't space for it.
Well, and they all knew that the girls belonged to her, but like they never
asked her why she wasn't
right.
doing what she ought to be doing.
They didn't interfere with that at all.
Yeah.
They just were like.
And I think it was I think they comment on the fact that they are Cecile's kids more so from the way that they look and behave than Cecile being actually present.
Right.
Delphine made that point about Vanetta.
Mm-hmm.
She was like, would you rather be famous or would you be with your kids? And Vanetta was like, my kids will celebrate me watching me on TV.
They don't need that.
Well, I mean, she's the middle child. Girls, especially girls that are middle kids, we get sassy.
Oh, here's another one on mothers. Gustafson, Diana, Unbecoming Mothers, the Social Production of Maternal Absence. The story weaves an exploration of civil rights with themes of Black pride and racial injustice. The main focus of the novel is the relationship between the Gaither children and their mother, Cecile. Found this book helpful because of the relationship or lack of that Delphine, Vanetta, and Fern have with their absent mother. In the book, Gustafson explores maternal absence and how women who leave their children are labeled a bad mother or non-mother. Gustafson also explores a social construct of motherhood and studies the lives of women who have lived apart from their children. So yeah, when a mother, when a dad gets custody of children, well, that mother must have been really, really, really bad for that to happen. And there's really not, it goes no farther than that.
Right.
And then, but if a mother gets custody, then it's, dad can't take care of them. Well, of course you can take care of them. If he learns to. Yeah, and that whole thing about babysitting the kids tonight, no, you're parenting. That's one of those. Don't you say that to us. Social construct, mother, I found this. Society looks at the expected role of mother in negative connotations.
I think it's because we are the life givers.
Yeah.
So we're expected to
They come from the womb, therefore they're our responsibility.
Right.
Mhm.
We are expected to take on that role, and when we don't, or when we seem to be lacking, we automatically get labeled as terrible mothers.
Mm-hmm. And the givers of milk, the milk of life. It's true.
We're human cows.
Okay, so Shay gets to say that since she's
I'm
pregnant.
going to be a life giver soon.
Better that.
Well, she brings up Junola too.
Okay, yeah. Thinking back to the example of a mother's role with Janella Brown in Planet of Junior Brown, Cecile does not depict the chosen matriarchal role of many Black women. Janella chose to exert control over her life by embracing her matriarchal role.
And she did more than embrace.
Are these expectations fair, or are they simply expected because Cecile is their mother? Do you think Delphine forgives her mother for abandoning her and her sisters?
I think forgive is a strong word. Do I think she understands a little bit better?
Probably.
Yes.
Well, as best as an 11-year-old can
I was
understand.
supposed to say a little bit better.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if Cecile, I don't know if she should be expected to do this, because I think her father kind of took advantage of her as far as, I'm going to provide you food and a shelter. And I think the humanitarian in him, maybe the hero syndrome kind of, he provided me everything, I can give him myself type of relationship
Right.
formed. And that's why they had children. And I that relationship we didn't hear a lot about in the book, and I kind of triggered me into thinking maybe she didn't have a choice. Because if she didn't give up, then maybe she didn't have food or shelter.
Right. She probably feared that she would be back out on the streets, which is a common fear.
Mm-hmm. Well, abandonment too is a common fear of children generally. It's, the Hansel and Gretel syndrome. What time do we end class?
6:50 usually.
Okay, is it?
We've got an hour about.
Oh, I don't know why I thought we did. I don't know. Don't ask me. I don't know what time it is, what day it is. Century. I am in a time slip of some sort. Okay.
Press the button. Press the button, you got this.
Do what you love.
There you go.
You create your reality.
Oh dear.
We fear a suck-it sandwich.
There you go. I like that one. I enjoyed that one. Yeah.
Dr. Stewart,
Yeah.
no matter how much time we have left, it's not nearly as much as we need to be spending with you.
Oh, sweet. Oh.
That's so nice. You so get an A. Okay, Jolynn, have at it.
Okay, so I was really wrestling with identity in here because, like, what is your name? What are you called? What do you go by? Who's your mama? Who's your daddy? It's like
the nickname.
you are in Brooklyn, but you're from Alabama, and now you're in Oakland. Like, I just felt like identity was a huge thing in here, but I couldn't find exactly what I was looking for. So I went back to just looking at African American children's literature in general, and I found this article from my first master's, and it was talking about the construction of African American children's literature and how even today, like nearly half of children's literature that's produced about African American children and the African American experience is not written by African Americans.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, you think we've come this crazy long way, and it's not the case at all. And so, going back to the article, I started looking for examples of, like, okay, how do people who are not African American, how are they represented? What do they do? And so, like, they went and asked Mean Lady Ming, to put up a little flyer for the rally, and she was super excited about it. They realized that she's not actually mean, and she's very supportive. And then They also saw that the white men who brought bread and groceries to the center, like, weren't terrible people. A brawl didn't break out. Like, they were joking, they were laughing, they were hanging around afterwards. Like, they were just people. And so the question that I started thinking about is like, okay, so it's okay for other races to support the African American cause, but can we, should we, or do we have the right to speak for them, like, as non-African Americans? And so if you look at my questions, they all kind of bind together. So can one race ever speak for or represent another? Conversely, is it enough to merely support or assist another race? Is that all that we can do? Is it responsible to only do that kind of thing? Would the poem the girls read at the rally have meant less if the author were not African American, even if everything else was exactly the same? And does it matter if another minority wrote it, if a white person wrote it? Like, what are the complications around this topic?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's a tough one. It is so very tough.
Like, where's the line? How much is enough without being too much? And like, can somebody imbue someone else with the right to speak because I can't speak? And is it just because I said it was okay? Because I'm now allowing them to speak for lots of other people. And so just wrestling with that.
One of the responses to that has been, well, men can write about women and women can write about men and capture their voices. That's not always been true. Men have gotten it wrong a lot. Just saying.
I was going to say I had a similar question when we were doing Parvana's Journey.
Yes.
Read that, and that whole article that accompanied that was about, you know, someone that hasn't really experienced that, writing about it, had a similar question in terms of, does that, in a sense, promote invisibility? Like, are we, if there are so many mouthpieces that are not the people about, you know, who these novels are supposedly centered around, are they not speaking up because other people are technically doing it, or all these other things are already out? And in that sense, is invisibility actually being promoted by other people attempting to be the mouthpiece?
Publishers have been notoriously bad about publishing books by people of color in the past for children. And there haven't been a lot of authors in the past. Certainly that's changing relatively dramatically now, because we've got a pretty good selection of contemporary books that are addressing some of the most important issues that, even though it's historical fiction, that still need to be addressed at this time. Once again, is it the white person stepping up and trying to save, you know, nobody's speaking for these children, so I need to. It's my duty. And then, of course, the question is, how well can you represent? I don't know the answer to that. I would not myself write a book with black characters in it, probably, fearing I'd get it wrong, fearing that I would fall into stereotypes, fearing that I would be blind to some extent because of my whiteness and my privilege. How many of you read American Born Chinese? It's a graphic novel, and it's about a kid. It's really, really complicated. They're like 4 stories interwoven, and they all come together. It's quite brilliant. But one of the characters his name is
Danny is the
Danny.
white one.
What's Chin Ki?
Chinky is the cousin.
Chin Ki is the cousin, but he's not really. He is actually the Monkey King which is a very famous character in Chinese mythology. And that he comes to Danny, this American-born Chinese, in the form of his cousin. And he wears the traditional Chinese garb. And his name is Qin He, or Chink, which is the derogatory term. And Qin He is the real smart one that's always speaking up. And, you know, there's people making really stupid remarks in and asking Danny, American-born Chinese, if, for instance, they eat dog. And it's just wretched in some of the stereotypes it brings up. But when it comes to talking about Qin He, it really goes right into those stereotypes. And the question is, could a white author have written that? I say that would have been a really big, big boiling pot if a white author had written that, because it would be considered insensitive. Now, Gene Yang can write it because he's writing it from the experience that he's witnessed and knows. So, but even at that, there are a lot of people who saw who read it that thought, oh, what is Gene Yang doing in promoting this kind of racism? And let me show you the picture.
That's the irony going over the reading.
That's the irony, yes. But could a white author do that and get away with it?
Or at least less likely today. Less likely.
So that's Danny. Do you know who these guys are? They were on YouTube singing My Way, and Gene Yang put them at the end of the book on the back cover. I'll have to show. I don't know if I want to show you that or not. So there's the Monkey King, and they're very, very traditional, and they are from China and carry many of the traditions with them, although they also fight them, trying to make sure that Danny is acceptable. And I didn't get to Qin He. I know he's there someplace. Everyone loves Qin He. You know, it's the from what was the Bonanza, the cook in Bonanza, pretty much him. See, hello, America. And I don't.
Chinese takeout box money.
Yeah, that's it.
You know, this one would be way too hard. But I wonder if you took a simpler situation, and the author was not the race of the characters in the book, and they wrote under a pseudonym.
Yeah, that would be disingenuous. Terrible disingenuous.
Maybe they wouldn't even let you do that.
Well, I mean, they could do it if they lied and got away with it, but that, I would consider that an outright.
But would you ever know?
Ethical violation.
Is my question.
I don't know.
Yeah, I was wondering if they would get away with it, so as not just get away with it as far as being exposed, but get away with it as far as making
I don't
authentic.
know. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good
maybe
question.
a publisher wouldn't even go along with that.
Well, if they knew they wouldn't.
Oh, I was assuming same agent who knew. Okay. I was thinking, you know, same agent, and you just say, hey, I want to do this. I would put a different name on it so that.
Yeah, if you said that to an agent, I doubt that they would publish it, because it would be hypocritical, and it would be a big ball of fire.
Right, because if it came out, then also
then everybody is ruined. everybody is ruined. I don't know, Jolene.
And that's okay.
It is okay. Hey, Jeremy, you're up.
Okay, so
Tell us about hitting Budapest.
yeah, so the reason I know about that is that was the author is actually a fellow Lion. So she graduated from Commerce and then went to SMU, Columbia. So
Okay.
I knew about the story because it's the first chapter of the book, We Need New Names. And the story, as far as this part, they're in Zimbabwe in a place that they call Budapest. That's not really what it's
Really,
named.
Budapest.
They call it that. And that's where there's this division between the affluent Africans and the Europeans who come and live there, and then the general populace, the very poor people who live in makeshift structures. And it's about a set of children, about 9 to 12 years old, who, because there is no food where they are, they go and steal the papaya from these people's yards. And so they'll jump the fences and take the papaya and eat them. And it's just interesting the way they see their lives in the future, where you have the narrator, Darling, saying that she's going to go to America. And then you have Bastard, who's one of the other characters, who says, well, that's dumb because that's too far away and you'd be over the ocean and you'd never be able to get back home. I'm just going to go to South Africa because it's much better, and we'll learn to steal better things than papaya and all of this. So it's just a really interesting story that's just about these children kind of existing in these terrible circumstances.
Mm-hmm. All right, so connect that then to One Crazy Summer.
One Crazy Summer. Yeah, the thing that I saw were the names, because you had the characters named Bastard, of course, God Knows, Darling, all these names that are very clear English meaning, and then you had in One Crazy Summer you had Inzala, and Afua, and I put what they mean Inzala is path. Of course, we learned that in the book. Afua is born on a Friday. Delphine, dolphin-like. I thought it was also interesting that the other names I didn't list here, like Cecile means blind. Which I always tell my students, go and look up the names and find out what they mean, because if the author looked them up, then they may have put some meaning in there that you can find about the character. And I think that's very, very telling, that she went from blind to now she's on her own path. I thought that was interesting.
Or blindly follows a path.
Blindly follows a path, maybe.
I don't know. Yeah.
She doesn't completely get rid of her name. She still answers to Cecile, but
yeah.
Yeah, and I was wondering if the name that the character is given means something about, or says something more about where they are, where they come from, or where they are, where they will be, or if and how does changing a name affect that character?
Mm-hmm. You know, I've read a lot of fantasy and such in my life, and one of the things that annoys me about fantasy is the crazy names that they use.
I can't ever pronounce them.
I just name them Ralph, you know? And Jordan. And it makes me kind of not want to read that material. And it's true that authors a lot of authors are very, very careful about the names that they choose for their characters, and there is significance behind them. They've done the research on coming up with a name. I wrote a children's book with Katherine Jacobs, and maybe I should share it with you sometime. We're fixing to do something with it. I don't know yet what. I named my characters normal names, even though it's kind of a fantastic novel that deals with invisibility all the way through. And one of them, the character's name is Buddy. That's my brother's name. And I can't remember the other names of the characters, but they're nothing brilliant, insightful about them. They're just names. But you know what? Parents name their kids certain names for a reason. And sometimes they do it with knowing that mythological or knowing that history and wanting to kind of embed some kind of future hope for their children in their name. So that, I don't know, there's probably a name for prosperity that somebody would name their child something that actually means prosperity, hoping that that child will grow up to prosper.
I'm sure there are children named Prosperity.
True that. And everything else.
My cousin was born like 3 months early, and so my aunt and uncle named him, like his name literally means strong messenger, because they wanted, if there was any way to embed strength in that preemie kid, they were going to do it. And he's 13 now, so he's rocking and rolling. But
I have a friend that did some, they had their son a little early, and he ended up with a lot of seizures in his infanthood, and they named him Gabriel. Because, and I believe it's warrior, some sort of mighty warrior type of thing. And he's 9 now. Yeah, some people actually have bought into it. Other people play game tournaments trying to pick names.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's a point well made. Delphine. What are the other girls' names? Vonetta.
And Fern.
I thought that one was funny too, because it's from the surname Vaughn. That actually says that in the book, that it's from the surname Vaughn. And Vaughn means small or little. You have little, and then Etta, which is that suffix that we talk about, diminutive. So you have little and even smaller.
Wow.
Thought that was interesting, especially since.
What does that say?
the odds of her personality.
Yeah.
Yes,
Because
it's
she
ironic.
feels so small, she feels like she has.
It's ironic. Yeah. Yeah. And I think about, there is symbolism, and it's very specific, intentional symbolism that frequently used in children's books, probably more so than any other genre. I don't think that many adult books search for that kind of symbolism. Maybe it's one of those things that encourages kids to, I'll start looking these up. I can promise my mom and dad didn't know what Susan meant when they named me Susan. I don't remember I've asked why they named me that.
It was a popular name during the time. It's my mom's name as well.
Well, that and you think about the old names that nobody has anymore, hardly. Opal, Florence,
Blanche. Opal was on my names list.
Violet.
I like the older names, which explains why I have an Octavius.
Yeah, those names just aren't. Olive,
Estelle.
Mildred.
That was my D&D character's name.
Mildred. There was a Mildred that came through South a couple years ago. It was crazy. I was like, Mildred. Wow. Velma. Yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of those old-fashioned names. And men's names too. So my dad's name is Ira. His actual full name is Ira McMahon Jr.
That's awesome.
My grandfather's name was Orville. That was one.
Orville, yeah. And Fern is one of those old names.
Ole Henry.
Yeah.
Name.
Mine was Horrible Christian Frederick Tubb. So, good German name.
Yeah. All right. This is Shay.
Well, in reading this, I was still really stuck on the whole social program, especially since we see the Learning Center in Oakland in the novel. And it just really, it still stuck with me that I didn't know that these things existed. I only knew the one picture of what the Black Panther Party was supposed to be for. And so I connected, I provided a link to a YouTube interview.
Oh, yeah, I want to see that.
It's Huey, and, well, it's two parts. The first part is Huey and this little girl from the Learning Center interviewing him. And then the second part of the video is an older teenage boy, probably 16, 17, 18, and he teaches Taekwondo at the Learning Center, as well as is also a student himself, because he has, I would assume it's dyslexia, just because he has trouble with his reading. But he also is part of a program where they have like a little shuttle that they get the elderly out for appointments and lunches and things of that sort.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of shows another part of what the Black Panther Party really stood for. And I thought it was, I mean, my question was pretty much of, you know, how different would things have been if the counter narrative hadn't been so thoroughly absorbed that the Black Panther Party just was violence and aggression.
And that's what the media and
Right.
everybody else pushed.
So, you know, it's like, what,
Because that's sensational,
Right.
like, that's
what
really-
kind of support would others have given the party? And I think, and one of my questions is, do you think more people would have been roused to activism knowing that they're actually trying to help these people? And one thing that we see in the novel, and that if you look, there's not a whole lot, but there's a couple kids in the video that aren't Black. They're, you know, white, you know, just, it's the impoverished that they're trying to help, not necessarily just their own race. And so they really stood for something versus just trying to be rabble rousers in the community. So
Okay, let's take a look at this.
I hope the link works, because I had to do it through my phone.
It's 24 minutes. We can't watch it all.
Right, well, the first
We heard
part
about the one-room
is,
schoolhouses back in the old days when people like Abraham Lincoln went to school. Well, our first visit will be to California, where we'll go to the Oakland Community Learning Center. This is a school that was started by a political organization in the Black community of Oakland. Before you can really appreciate a visit to the school, you'll probably need some background information. Well, back in the 60s, a man named Huey Newton started a group called the Black Panthers. They were a very controversial outfit back then because they were critical of the way in which the local police behaved in their community. Many of their members, including Huey, were arrested, and some even served time in jail for their activities. Many people know of the Panthers because of their run-ins with the police, but there's another side to this organization. In Oakland, in many ways a poor community, the Panthers are also known for their projects like the breakfast program for school children and for the Community Learning Center. When we visited the center, we saw that they had a different approach to teaching and learning. We're going to be meeting a student at the Learning Center, a young lady named Kalita, and when the film opens, Kalita is interviewing Huey Newton, founder of the Black Panthers.
Where did you come from?
Well, I was born in Louisiana, in the South, in Monroe, Louisiana. And I came, my family came to Oakland when I was about 1.5. So I've been here about, 34 years. I'm 35 now. I'm an old man. But I went to about every school in Oakland. We moved a lot.
What was it like in your school?
We were being taught mostly about white people. We didn't have any books of our own, so it wasn't. We didn't feel that that the school was teaching us anything about ourselves. So it was a great problem in school for me and for the teachers, and that's why as I grew older, I always felt that. As I grew older and learned about our true history, that Africa, before its conquest, was a beautiful, cultured country, and we had great universities in Timbuktu. And I started to look at myself and get a new interest in education. And so that's one of the reasons that I'm so proud of your school.
Look who's here, Punchinella, Punchinella. Look who's here, Punchinella in the shoe. My name is Kalita Smith. I'm 8.5 years old. I live in Oakland, California. Oh, we can do it too, Punchinella, Punchinella. We can do it too. I go to school at the Oakland Community Learning Center. My school was started by the Black Panther Party. The earliest age to start going to this school is when you're 2.
You say, sí quiero. David. Bueno.
We don't have grades in our school. We have levels.
Manzanas. ¿Te gustan manzanas?
They put us in different levels based on what we can do.
¿Te gusta? ¿Te gusta?
Schools, everything was a problem. For example, they used to serve cookies and I think graham crackers and milk in the morning to children in primary school who had the money to pay for it. And if you didn't have the money to pay for it, you had to put your head on the desk until the other kids finished eating. I always thought that was very bad, but at the Oakland Community School, everybody eats.
My school serves us breakfast, lunch, and dinner because sometimes your mother or father or whoever you're living with probably don't have enough food for you. Some of the people who serve food are teachers. First time I saw Huey is when we went to the San Francisco airport to see Huey come from Cuba. What do you like best about this school?
I like you best, and I like the children best.
Wonder what she's doing now.
The children at the school I think it's just fantastic. We weren't allowed to be free to be creative, and our curiosity was, and our questions about things were slowly discouraged. Whenever I asked a question in the class, if it was an intelligent question, the teacher would think I was just trying to be smart. And I would say, be quiet, or else go and sit in the corner. But the children in our school are free, and they ask all sort of questions, and we try to give them an answer. But they teach us so much. I think that you teach us a lot because we need to know the things that you're thinking because you come up with fresh ideas, you see.
And I talked to your mother today, and Kalita, aren't you supposed to be at the Justice Board meeting? Well, you really have to remember the Justice Board meetings, okay? You should go up now.
Today, Carol sent me a letter about Sherry not doing her homework. The Justice Committee gives you a method correction if you don't do your homework, if you play in class.
I think I need that for my freshmen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just kind of goes over what sort of things that they did at the Learning Center. And it just like, it really just like, if we'd known, more about that side of things, how different could it have been?
I don't know that it would have been. I don't. Because of the mindset of a nation at that point. I mean, look at it now. Some of that mindset lingers, and it doesn't take much to let it out. just a little bit of encouragement, and it pours out. The hate pours out. I don't know. But part of that is due to the media by not offering those stories, because I can promise you a bunch of white people didn't want to hear about it. That would not be good news for a very large purchasing audience. Jeannie, there you go. Politics of Motherhood.
Yes. The article I read was pretty much kind of a history of motherhood. And it started in the 70s and 80s, and so back then the consensus was that that was what completed you, and that was the most wonderful thing in the world, and yeah. And then by the 90s, they started getting to a little bit more complicated picture of it. And talked about that if you were single, or I don't know if I can name all three, if you were single, or if you were, it was all three of Cecile's, and I can remember, I wrote the margin, all three in the book. Unemployed maybe, and I don't know if she's employed. And anyway, then you were a bad mother. It went through, ultimately, it even went through and reminded us of Andrea Yates.
Oh.
Who was a woman who drowned her 5 children,
I remember that.
mental illness, and said that I didn't know this, it said that in Texas, a bill was written to, I don't know what it said, kind of like give them a pass, mothers who kill. But the bill didn't pass.
Well, of course.
Because, of course you just say, I'm mentally ill. Anyway, I think what I asked about was, it's not up there. Yeah.
Here it is.
How does the girls' progress measure against the Black Panthers progress?
Oh, yeah. I said that really we said in this class more than once that people who are one race or another don't want to be white necessarily or want to be another race. They just want to have the same equal opportunity as everybody. And so I felt like that these girls kind of had the same goal as the Black Panthers. They just wanted to have an equal family. They didn't want to have Bel Air necessarily. They just wished that they had a normal situation, and especially Delphine, because she would talk about, frequently, mom leaving them and that kind of thing. And so I kind of felt like, let's see, who did either of them make progress? Who made more progress? And then I referred to what I mentioned about Nora Ephron, saying that anytime the pendulum swings a little far, they shame women and kind of make them feel like they should get back to where they belong, not maybe as the CEOs.
In the kitchen.
Yes, back to the kitchen and not the boardroom. And so as the girls literally go back to where they came from at the end, is everything political. And I don't necessarily have the answers, I just ask the question.
Mm-hmm. So, does anything change for them when they get back?
Yeah,
well, I'm guessing that being around the Black Panthers will have, they already changed.
Right.
They weren't that interested in participating in the revolution.
Right, they just came for the breakfast.
Right, and they just wanted to see their mom.
Mm-hmm.
And but what do? They become part of the movement. Mm-hmm. And they are changed forevermore. Mm-hmm. So I can imagine all 3 girls growing up to be lawyers and fighting for civil rights.
Well, and although there would be a barrier when they went back, because Big Ma's opinion was that they were troublemakers or you know.
Mm-hmm.
So there would have to be some kind of a.
She believed it was on the news.
Yeah, and the black community did have, a lot of the black community had the same attitude about the Black Panthers. They saw them as a threat to their own peace.
And especially whenever all of them, like so many were arrested.
Mhm.
Was it the New York 11 or the 21?
I don't
It was
remember.
some one number. It was in the documentary last week that I watched, talking about how like they were all arrested and they had like over 100 charges against all of them,
Mm-hmm.
and they were just made up
Of course they were, yeah.
charges that, and they were all acquitted. They were all let go and found not guilty, and so that was a big hullabaloo. And if they're in Brooklyn, like they were affected by that. I wonder, it's very interesting to be in their heads and see what they thought about all that business.
Well, they come away with a new awareness of who the Black Panthers are. They're not what Big Mama thinks.
And they're not what you see on the news.
And they're not what you see on the news.
They get both sides of the equation.
But whenever they get home, I don't think that they could revert back to their former thinking. So it's going to be met with resistance. They're going to have to develop resistance.
Mm-hmm. No unringing the bell.
Right.
That's right.
So I wonder if they would end up pushing back like Stick did in his father's ideas.
I'd be too afraid to push back against Big Mom.
If they had good conversations, and lots of them, they might get the same education that some of us did.
Mm-hmm.
Because I certainly got Big Mom about the Black Panthers. I didn't know. I was like Big Mom. I guess the news was all anti.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it pretty much was. Everything was anti then, though. Everything. Anti-war, anti-establishment.
Anti-establishment. Go against the man.
But the man talked back. I mean, that's why they were anti-Black Panther. The man was trying to, J. Edgar Hoover, remember that was in that movie I watched, trying to keep the Black Panthers in their place.
Uh-huh.
Keep them pushed in. Because they were doing too much good.
Hi, Jill.
Hello.
So, tell us about what you came up with here.
Well, I can kind of segue this from her discussion, talking about wondering what the girls would do. Did anybody else read the sequel?
I haven't.
Well, the only reason I've read my books on my Kindle, and when I finished this one, it popped up and said, "How about a preview of the sequel?" And it gave me the first several chapters, and so I just read it. And I didn't really realize it until after I'd already picked this article and written this up, that part of the reason I was focusing on Big Ma was from what I read in the first few chapters of the sequel. So I kind of goofed there, but but we see bits and pieces of it in the novel. Big Ma's attitude about their appearance, not making a spectacle in front of the white people, and
or anybody making a spectacle.
Yeah, that they were essentially representing the entire black culture by how they acted.
Yeah, I mean, and they were talking about them behaving on the plane, and you make us proud, and that kind of thing.
And so, it was just such a dichotomy between her and Cecile, and to me, these girls were caught in this generational struggle. But Big Ma, you got to think about it. She was from Alabama, and she grew up and raised her own children in Jim Crow era, basically, and much worse even than what it is in the Civil Rights era. So anyway, that's where I went to look for this article to find out what was the basis of, her obsession with appearances and such. Because I won't ruin things for the sequel in case anybody wants to read it. But the first couple of chapters just covered the girls' flight back, and getting back with their dad and Big Ma, and they acted up on the plane. They acted up when they got back to the airport. They cut in line. They did. They cut in line in the bathroom because Fern needed to go, and she peed on the floor. And the girls ran through the airport, and Delphine knocked a paper out of a white man's hand, and I mean, it was kind of crazy. And of course, Big Ma was standing there to get them, and she was beside herself. I mean, because I'm sure in her mind they were about to be lynched. I mean, that would have happened in Alabama in her time, and it turned into a real issue before they ever got out of the airport with Big Ma.
Did you read the whole thing?
I read the first 3 or 4 chapters, and I'm going to finish. I just haven't quite. But even a white woman who was in the restroom came over to her while they were waiting on the cars and told her she needed to get her girls in line. And,
holy crap.
And she slapped Delphine. The Big Ma did. And so it turned into a real, you could see what was coming. I mean, you could see where this was going to go. It was going to be this freedom and new attitude that they got in Oakland versus Big Ma's old-fashioned caring about what the white people thought. Because I think Delphine even said that, something along the lines of, all Big Ma cares about is what the white people think and them loving us and, this kind of thing.
Okay, I'm gonna listen to that. That's on.
I wouldn't have if it hadn't just popped up, but it's definitely, I think, would be worth reading.
I might listen to that instead of the post-apocalyptic novel that I'm listening to now.
It's called PSB 11.
Public school? No.
I think it's from a letter from Cecile. I think she writes her a letter and says PS B11.
B11. Everybody goes, oh.
So now I'm way off track now on this article, but anyway, yeah, it was just basically talking about rural black women in the South during the time that Big Ma would have been growing up and raising her own children, and they were, I had a quote on here, but I don't remember exactly what it said. It's along the line of they were in an environment where they were basically facing extermination, from all different areas. And so their resistance was in appearances, in aesthetics.
Okay.
By keeping the house tidy with fresh flowers, and their children were made to feel ashamed of the color of their skin, and so they tried to counter that by their hair being fixed certain ways and their clothing being very crisp and neat, and they told their kids how to act in public because it was important. They were basically trying to counter the culture. I mean, it was their own form of resistance. So I just thought it was interesting because, Cecile, we see in Oakland and the Panther Women and some of these other books, kind of poo-pooing on all the old-fashioned ideas, from the older generation, but that was also their form of resistance. So I just felt like that was the basis of a lot of the conflict in the novel, was the pull between the two, with these girls anyway, and their identity. So.
Wow. I can see as if my books were intentional, but they weren't intentional in the way that it's turning out. So that me thinking about mothers and resistance, which is something that's not been addressed in the scholarship whatsoever, for Black mothers and resistance. Not like not like the way that we're talking about it. This is a really rich topic. I might have to
see, after reading this article, you can certainly understand why Big Mom felt as strongly as she does about,
yeah.
She does. Even it may be a little outdated and the children don't understand it, but you can see where she was coming from. Said in this article, it was they felt like it was their calling to give children hope of, that it was their job as a mother. They took it very seriously. So I'm sure you can, how she feels about Cecile is like the antithesis to what she knew as what mothers should be. So.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting.
Now I'm going to have to start reading scholarship and read that novel because it's Watson's Go to Birmingham, 1963, takes place civil rights movement. There's Rock on the River, civil rights movement. There's this one and the sequel, which I would consider one book basically, because it sequel, because it just takes off from the last one. So I'd consider that one whole book. That doesn't take, that's not in the 60s, yeah. Although that is originally.
The one we're reading next week is. So.
What are we reading?
The Revolution.
Revolution of Evelyn Serrano.
I think that's Latinx though, yeah.
Oh, well, it is, but it's during that same time period.
Okay. Have you started it?
I read it. I read it by accident. I thought it was like 2 weeks ago, and I read it.
Is it any good?
I'm actually one ahead for once. Yeah, it is. It's really good.
Excellent. I hate it when I pick a bad book.
It works right in with this. I mean, it's
brilliant. Look how brilliant I am.
Made it any better.
I didn't even know how. And then that leads into Esperanza Rising, which I think all of you will like a great deal. Is that the one we end on? No, we end on Wheat Flour. And I'm not sure if I'm crazy about that again or not. I'll have to read it again. Things just kind of depend on whether we actually get to Wheat Flour. I don't know. All right. Oh, how are we doing?
11 minutes, 40. Yeah.
We've got time for another. Thank you all for doing my research for me.
Oh, you're welcome.
Jennifer, are you there? Did you disappear?
No, I'm here. Sorry.
There you are. Hi, Jennifer.
I'm like sneezing and coughing. I feel like nobody needs to see or hear that. So
you are up.
Yeah, so I did something a little bit different. I didn't know if we could do interviews or not. But I was originally interested in exploring like the intersectionality, like of how much it was doing with the women's movement simultaneously with civil rights. And so that's kind of what I was exploring. And I happened upon this interview by a producer, filmmaker by the name of Sheila Jackson. And I knew nothing of her prior to the interview, but I guess she owns like a company in LA. And she's just a women's activist and a civil rights activist, but she grew up in segregated Memphis at the time and sort of chronicles her experience. And I thought that was cool because it sort of just, in a lot of ways, paralleled Delphine's experience as a young African-American girl trying to figure out her identity in terms of, do you emulate, do you resist, all those kinds of things. And so the interview deals a lot with that, and Sheila Jackson sort of discusses, she's like a documentary filmmaker, and she discusses the Black Panther movement and all the things, Black Power movement, sorry, in the times of the Black Panther Party, and just has just really good questions. I think it's a very provocative interview, and she talks about how she had been wanting to write and talk about the 70s and the 60s and that era for a really, really long time, and her publishers kept refusing to allow her to do that. She was allowed to write on the Harlem Renaissance, but not touch those particular decades, and she was talking about how really, like on a national level, you know, it's only been the last year or so that we're able to talk about those things, because there's this discomfort surrounding the Black Panther Party, and are they heroes or are they villains? And all that stuff. So it's super fascinating article, or interview. But ultimately, like my questions, I had two. And one was I was asking in what ways her work, Sheila Jackson, as well as William Garcia, the author of One Crazy Summer, how those works themselves are examples of resistances, but asking more than that, are they effective? Because you see works from several decades ago, but we're still having to write about these things today. So are they effective forms of resistance, if they are in fact forms of resistance at all?
Well, you know, this class is ahead of its time because we are finding out about the Black Panther and that form of the Black Panthers and their form of resistance, because their form of resistance took not only a physical form in defending themselves, but a intellectual form in making sure their children were educated and taken care of, and educating the future.
Yeah, because they knew that the kids were going to be this.
Yes, they're the ones who are going to be having to fight the fight, knowing that it would not. Yeah. I don't know the answer. I'd like to believe. I know that books do influence us, especially if you read only one kind of book, So if you read a lot of white supremacist stuff that reinforces ideas of white supremacy, then it's going to go along those lines. I wonder, though, if books like this don't say to young readers, you have the power if you want to try. And it's not going to appeal to everyone, because not all kids are like that.
I think it depends too on how you define effective. Like, one book, well, it has the potential, I guess, if you're an optimist, to revolutionize the world, depending on how many people get a hold of it. You're still fighting against a culture that is centuries in the making. So it's not we're not turning on a dime here. We have to turn a ship.
Mm-hmm.
And so is it effective? It kind of goes back to that avalanche. Is one rock effective? Not necessarily, but if it's one rock amongst many rolling down a hill, like, it's a force.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you look at effective, meaning contributing to the body of work that's already there to push for change, yes. Or if you're talking about effective, like smacking people in the head with a brick bat, maybe not.
Maybe not. And that effectiveness is also dulled by the conflict in which it's placed, so that it could get to the point of feeling useless and hopeless when Black kids see things happening on the news to other Black kids, when Latinx kids see terrible things happening to other Latinx kids on the news or in any social outlet. So it's always placed in that conflicted area. It's not a war zone, but it has its, maybe a battle zone. I don't know.
I would say that if we had a group of young people reading along with us, wouldn't that be fascinating? And talking about the same things, it would. I would love to hear what they would have to say. What do you want to do? Do you want to make this stop? Do you want to change anything? They're so idealistic so much of the time. I was.
They don't have those boundaries that we develop as we get older.
Mm-hmm. And that cynicism. I don't know. guys are asking such good questions. I love it. I love it when I have to say, I don't know. Okay. I think that puts us right about at the end. I've posted this online under this week, and I'll post the lecture as soon as I'll try to get it done. I'll try to post it in the morning before I leave in Missouri. Depends on if I can make my way to the computer blindly. So, questions about anything? Okay, all of you who came in late, be sure to listen to the beginning because I gave some instructions on there. And I think that should do it for this. Next week is next Friday, not this coming Friday, but the following Friday will be First Friday. I don't know any of the details on it yet, but folks will be coming up with that. So just want you to know.
We would like to do it in this room.
We're going to do it in this room, and I need to make those arrangements so that people can stream in if they can't travel.
Awesome.
No, that would be really cool.
All right. All right, so that's what we'll do. Everybody be well. I think our days are going to change here shortly, right? With daylight savings time doing something.
I think that's next weekend or the 3rd or something.
Arg. And then I'll see you next week, as long as everything continues to travel along.